We had been in church. I was raised in church as a kid. But in my adult years, it just evolved away from any kind of religious participation or spiritual belief. And so I didn't believe in anything at all until my addiction really took hold of my life and drove me into a real dark place. And so those addictions have caused a lot of problems in my life, even when I wasn't actively engaged in my addictions. The issues that led me there were always still there.
And I always considered him kind of an angry person.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of hard to deal with sometimes.
Jane and I grew further and further apart, ended up in a separate bedroom, and then I ended up in an apartment with divorce papers served. I mean, I was gonna die sooner rather than later, the way I was living, you know. Whiskey shots for breakfast are not a recipe for a good, healthy life. And so in rehab on Friday afternoons, we had spirituality class. And my case manager was teaching this one Friday, and she started talking about we as addicts being worthy of being loved by God. And see, I was at a place in my life that I couldn't imagine anyone loving me. So the day Martha somehow got through to me that I was in fact worthy of being loved by my God, just flipped a switch for me in some ways. I really felt like it was the beginning of my true spiritual journey back to God. Despite all the terrible things I had done, and I had done some very bad things, I was forgiven and I was loved. And I think God kind of led me to Rick, and Rick kind of led me to God. Because the day we joined, we had been going for several months, but the day we joined, Rick gave a sermon about brokenness. And to know that this was a place I could come and be broken and that was okay.
Like a hospital.
Meant a lot. I mean, that really meant a lot to me. And so the Hills has been a big part of my recovery and my continued growth in sobriety, recovery, a relationship with God, a relationship with Jane that really started over again as well. We essentially put the old relationship in the past and started over, a new marriage. And it has been, you know, such a blessing. I've never taken for granted that we're together like I used to.
Mm-hmm. We had isolated each other during all this. When he was really dark, in a dark place, and I had isolated, didn't have friends. He isolated and didn't have any friends, seems like. And after we came over the hump, you know, went through the process of finding, you know, rehab and all this stuff, and we started going to these groups and coming to this church, we started establishing friendships again. And that's huge. That connection with people is huge. Especially people that have maybe know your story and you know their story, and you know, there's just something about that gives you a little bit more strength to have that connection in the people.
The fact that God brought us back together and gave us a second chance as a couple and me a second chance in life as a man has been an extraordinary, really, journey for me.